Good evening once again, Irish fans, to the Irish Fan podcast, where my name is Danny and I'm not an Irish fan. I am the Irish fan. Thank you so much for joining me. If you could, again, I'm new to this game. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'm only on YouTube right now, and I guess that's how it's going to be for a while, just because getting on all that other social media stuff is hard. I'm not really doing this to make tons of money. So I'm just doing this for my own posterity. I'm doing this because I like to talk and I like to talk about Notre Dame football. So right now, that's all I'm doing. I'm doing the YouTube game. Eventually, I am going to get some kind of social media. But until I do, this is where you're going to find me. YouTube. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And I haven't mentioned this in the past, but I'm going to mention it now. Please click the notification bell. So once I upload a video, boom, you're going to get it. You're going to see your boy talking Irish football. So we played another game. Um, didn't go exactly how I wanted it to go. It didn't. Look, we won. Okay, we won, but there's some clearly obvious problems with this football team. I think I know what it is. I do. I mean, there's a lot of problems. There's different problems. There's different varying degrees of the problems. I mean, you could write a book on the problems that Notre Dame football has right now. Unfortunately, I mean, the list is extensive, but I think it all narrows back to one thing. I've talked about it before a little bit. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail again this time, because I don't think it gets enough attention within the Notre Dame fan base. It certainly doesn't within the Notre Dame media sphere. And it most definitely doesn't within the overall college football media sphere. That's NIL. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail after I talk first about the game. I mean, it was ugly to say the least. Riley Leonard got off to an abysmal start. He didn't complete the easy ones this time. Last week I did. I asked, can I just get one play down the field, please? Just one play down the field. And, I got it. That's awesome. But he failed to complete some very easy ones early on that would have kept the offensive rhythm, that would have kept us going, that would have scored more points instead of just 28. And yes, that is important. Danny, we won by 25. What's the problem? The problem is we lost to Northern Illinois. Okay, that's the problem. Well, I should say that's one of the problems in a long litany of them. We lost to Northern Illinois. And that means, therefore, going forward, we have to win convincingly every single game. Not just win, we got to win convincingly. Because the playoff is on the line. People are competing for playoff spots. There's a lot of good teams out there. There's a lot of teams out there that people probably counted out that are like, hey, look at us. We're actually pretty good. We deserve a spot here. And Notre Dame's kind of just going, we're here. We like playing football, I guess. It's fun. But in terms, our hearts aren't in it right now. They're just not in it. We're having a hard time playing at home. You shouldn't have a hard time getting your players excited to play at home. And let's say they are excited. I'll give them that. Fine. They're jacked up. They're ready to go. Let's play football at home. They're not playing well. It's still not working. And we've got to figure it out. Riley Leonard is having trouble connecting now with the easy throws. We thought at first maybe it was more difficult ones, and they were just giving him those high percentage throws out early so that he could develop a rhythm. Mix that in with the run game, boof, voila, you've got a good quarterback, I guess. I mean, that's literally the recipe that we've been following over the last 4 games. We're now 4 games into the season, and our starting quarterback has 1 touchdown pass. Well, Danny, all you asked for was 1 last week. I mean, come on. What more can you ask? More touchdowns, please. I asked for one last week. I got it. Okay. This week, in a much more important game, I need more. I need more touchdowns. Not one more. I need a few more, at least. Passing touchdowns. You've got to start throwing the ball down the field. You've got to. Here's the reason why. If you become so predictable as to make other teams, I dare you to throw the ball down the field, and you still don't do it, you are going to lose against every good team you face. And you're going to get caught by a team that you shouldn't lose to. Is this sounding familiar? Is this ringing a bell? People know this. Fans know this. Fans can see it. Fans see this type of stuff on the field. That's why there are boos. Let's address those for a second. I got a text from a buddy who was like, "Why are Notre Dame's fans booing their own team?" I saw some social media personalities that cover Notre Dame. I saw another person, a journalist who covers Notre Dame, saying, why are we booing our own team? Because our fans are the ones who hold the team accountable. I mean, I understand we're just mushrooms here, I mean, why would we be given any kind of information, we're just the fans after all. We only pay for everything and give you guys everything and love and adoration and attention. And, the only reason why you guys coaches at least make millions of dollars a year. Well, no, players too, is because of us. We hold you, we have expectations. We hold you accountable, and boos are a part of that. When you fail to deliver something, especially the easy stuff, you're gonna get a boo bird or two, and rightfully so. You should. This is how life works. If you go to work every day and you fail to do easy things at whatever that job is, you're gonna get some boo birds. I mean, you might not literally get someone going, boo! But you're definitely going to get some criticism. As well you should. Shoot, I mean, this day and age, even if you do your job to perfection and as best as you possibly can, you're still going to get negativity. It's the world we live in. But anyway. Yeah, there were some boo birds. Because you missed 3 easy passes in a row. And we, the fans, need to hold you accountable. And the disclaimers that I've given before about not trolling and not insulting players and insulting players' families and threatening them and things like that, that's not who I am. That's not what I do. And that's not what this is. You definitely deserve criticism. For sure. Coaches, players, the like, all of you. Because that first half, it looked a lot like Illinois, Northern Illinois. A lot. It was actually it was kind of weird. It's a microcosm of this team. This team is so weird. I've seen a lot of Notre Dame football teams. This team is so weird. But the first half of this game resembled the loss to Northern Illinois. Because there were things, the simple things all of a sudden vanished. And I saw a couple of people. I listened to Malik Zaire, and he and Sean Davis's podcast, Lucky Lefty podcast. Tune in if you don't listen to that. It's pretty good. He thought for a second that the final score, or not the final score, but the halftime score was 3-0. I was talking to a work buddy today who thought the same thing. Wasn't the score like 3-0 at half? And then I saw another podcast who thought the same thing, that it was 3-0 at halftime. That's how bad it was. The score was actually 14-3. Okay. Not only was it 14-3, but we started to catch rhythm, and if it wasn't for a stupid penalty by Don Schuler, we would have got the ball back with 2 timeouts, and a minute left, with only like 60 yards to go to at least get into field goal range or score another touchdown, and then we would have gotten the ball back at half. So we were, excuse me, we were a stupid penalty away from really putting the screws on them, and possibly going up 21-3 at half. But I just think it's weird. The fact that there were so many people who thought the halftime score was 3-0 just speaks volumes to the level of play of that first half, especially the first quarter. It was abysmal. You had dropped punts by special teams. You had all of a sudden you have a holder problem again. I don't know if anybody remembers that year. It was one of the BK years. I can't remember exactly which year, but we could not find a freaking holder to save our lives. And those are the kind of things that drive Notre Dame fans up a wall, is when you can't do the easy things right. We have a hard enough time competing against the elites. And we constantly get compared to the elites. But then you get to these easy points where all of a sudden we just forget how to play football. Sorry, I had some popcorn. I couldn't swallow this kernel. That's kind of gross. Anyway, the easy things, they were not being done right. They couldn't do it. That drives me up a wall, and it leads to these perspectives, these conclusions that aren't actually true. I go back to the very first podcast that I made. College football was, and always will be a game of perception. As long as a bunch of people get into a room and decide who the best teams are, it's a game of perception. And the perception, even though we were winning 14-3, and by any standard, you should win that game. I don't care who you're playing. If you're up 14-3 at half, whoever that team is that's up 14-3 should end up winning the game. But it was played so poorly that you were led to believe that we were losing. There's this perception that we were losing the game. And the reason why is because we're playing a bad team in Miami of Ohio. They are a bad... Now, if Northern Illinois, who, by the way, just lost to Buffalo, good job. That's not gonna follow you or haunt you the rest of the season at all. But if Northern Illinois... If you should have beat Northern Illinois pretty good, you definitely should have beat Miami of Ohio pretty good. Well, Danny, they won by 25 points. I know. The score is a little deceiving. It's a little deceiving, specifically because of that stupid... Well, we got off to a slow start. Stupid of Don Schuler. We could have gone up 21-0. I think we were rolling at that point. I think we probably would have. And then we had 2 drives at the end of the game with Steve Angeli at quarterback, and all he did was pretty much hand the ball off. We'd called the dogs off. And Freeman didn't want to be that coach who's running up the score, which I understand, I get. But the last drive we took knees we were inside the 10-yard line. We very easily at least would have been 35-3, if not 42-3. The final score should have been 49-3. Now here's the thing: we need it to be 49-3. We need those games to go that way. That's one of my biggest criticisms of this team and Marcus Freeman. There is no sense of urgency at all. I'm going to talk about this in the next segment of this podcast, but he has no sense of urgency when he's coaching. Yeah, he's up, he's energetic, he's engaged, but in play calling, decisive in-game decisions, there's really no sense of urgency. But a lot of people were like, why? I think it was Irish Illustrated was really up in arms about the timeouts at the end of the first half. This is where I was. Yeah, I was actually finally. Yeah, he was calling the timeout so he could get the ball back with a minute left to score a touchdown. So that when we got the ball back at half, we'd score another touchdown. That was the idea. That's why he did that. I like that. Every once in a while, he'll kind of make a decision like that. That's aggressive. That does have a sense of urgency. Sometimes that bites him in the butt. It bit him in the butt against NIU. It bit him in the butt last year at when we were playing at Ohio State. We're beating Ohio State. The game is within reach. You can taste victory, and you take out your starting running back who is just starting to turn yards, and you try to go for the jugular. You throw a screen that doesn't work, and you end up giving the ball back to Ohio State. Ball game. Same thing against NIU. Instead of playing it safe, running the ball, getting your first downs, killing the clock, making NIU spend their timeouts, he gets aggressive, throws a pass, interception, ball game. He doesn't have the right proportion of aggressiveness and taking it easy. And I think that goes to sense of urgency. He's got to understand the moment. And when you can put the screws to somebody, you need to be able to do that. I think he should have scored a touchdown there at the end. I think we needed at least one more score. 35-3 looks a lot better than 28-3. It just does. And again, if you're one of those people that's, now then you're just running up the score. Yeah, you kind of have to. College football, okay? There are people deciding the best teams. The way they do that is they look at scores, they look at who you beat, specifically ranked teams, and by how much. And Marcus Freeman falls short there. He doesn't understand that. Brian Kelly didn't really do that either. That was one of my, that drove me nuts. There were always games, Brian Kelly got to the point where he would win the games that he should win. Brian Kelly 2.0. He got to that point. He stopped losing those games, and he won them. But the teams that you could really put the screws to up some of your stats so that those deciding at the end of the season whether you deserve to be in or not can see those. He fell short. He fell short a lot. Toledo, that's one of them. Totally failed to get to prepare the team to play that game against a not very good Toledo team. And this Miami of Ohio team is the same thing. It's Miami of Ohio, who's Blaine Gabbert's brother is 5'9", 185 pounds, who you should be wailing on all day long. But he's allowed to make a couple plays. Now, I'm not so much being critical of the defense today. The defense played very, very well. It's hard to come at a defense that only gives up 3 points. They gave up 3 points, and that was in the first quarter. So, if I'm being nitpicky, and I do think it's nitpicky, they gave up 110 yards on the ground to the last ranked rushing team in the country. Miami of Ohio has the worst ranked rushing team in all of college football. And they've been averaging I think it was 36 yards a game. And Notre Dame gave them 110. Now, part of that is game planning. We were like, okay, you're not good at this. If you beat us today, it's certainly not going to be this way. So you can have those 5 or 10 yards here and there. We'll give you 110 yards if that means you're only going to score 3 points. And I think that was the game plan, and it worked. Again, I think that's nitpicky. I've heard some criticism the last couple of days from it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Defense played lights out. This team I said earlier, I said a second ago. It's the weirdest Notre Dame football team I think I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of bad Notre Dame football teams. I've seen a lot of bad Notre Dame football teams that were bad because they had no talent. I've seen a lot of bad Notre Dame football teams because they had bad coaching. I've seen bad Notre Dame football teams because they've had both. I've seen good Notre Dame football teams because of the previous two examples, talent and coaching. I've never seen a good Notre Dame football team play so badly. Does that make sense? That's why it's so weird for me. I've seen plenty of bad play from Notre Dame football. But a team that is this good, or at least should be this good, play this poorly in the first 4 games of the season, it 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 blows my mind at times, the level of play from this team. I have absolutely no. I'm going to talk about what the real reason why I think this is. But the inconsistency is just is has got to stop. And that's the best way I can describe this game. It was so inconsistent. You saw the best of Notre Dame today, and you saw the worst. You saw a quarterback who couldn't complete a simple RPO 5-yard out run pass play to tight end. I mean, if you throw that pass 100 times, it's one of those passes you need to complete 98 out of 100 times. It's that easy. A pass that I can do should be done by Riley Leonard, and he missed 3 of them. Unacceptable. You should not be missing these throws. And you know why. We're getting into the point now of coaching and preparation, game prep, practice, of plugging that hole and then another leak springs, and plugging that hole and another leak springs, then plugging that hole and another one. It's the reason why he didn't complete those passes is because during practice this week, they didn't practice it. That's why. They might have included it in the game plan. They might have gone over it through walkthroughs, but live play, they didn't run it. You know they didn't. And if they did, and he's not executing that in the game, I don't get it. I don't understand why simple changes can't be made. And as long as this podcast exists, as long as I'm allowed to do this, I'm going to continue hammering home the standard of excellence. Marcus Freeman hasn't found his standard of excellence yet. Most importantly, he hasn't found the Notre Dame version of standard of excellence. Unfortunately, we let a coach stick around for 12 years, and he never found it either. And we have gone through 30 years without a coach who's really found what that means, who understands that difficult decisions need to be made. If you think I'm talking about benching Riley Leonard, I am. Now, this is a very resisted idea particularly in the Notre Dame media coverage side of Notre Dame football. It's very popular in the fan side. As you can see, I'm a fan. I'm doing a fan podcast, and I'm advocating for it. Not because I think he's a bad guy or even a bad player. There's only so many things that are happening here. If they're running it in practice and he's doing it and not executing on the field, that's worthy of a benching. If he's not running it in practice, if he is running it in practice and he's not executing it, and he's not executing it on the field, that's a coaching problem. Well, they're both, one of them's a player problem, and then the other's a player problem and a coaching problem. I've been saying it ad nauseum. In 2022, we were stuck with Drew Pine, and I understood his bad play did not equal getting him benched and putting in Steve Angeli, who's a true freshman. We had no choice. So we kind of had to live and die by however Drew Pine was going to play. And the funny thing is, Drew Pine could complete some damn passes down the field. He didn't have that problem. He was inconsistent. And he's certainly, I mean, his obviously he just didn't have the physical ability. I mean, the guy couldn't play at Arizona State. I don't know where he transferred from Arizona State. I don't know where he's at right now, but I'm sure he's not starting there either. He's got physical limitations, but even he could complete a pass down the field once in a while, and you didn't need him to be a running quarterback. So I don't know. I don't get what this obsession is with keeping Riley Leonard as the starter and just running him until he breaks his neck. Because that's what's happening. He's killing himself out there on the field. I have no idea how he's okay with this. And I have no idea how this is a sound, cogent coaching decision. It makes no sense. You know what also doesn't make any sense? I saw a question by a fan asking a Notre Dame expert, why doesn't Jeremiah Love get 20 carries plus a game? And the expert said, you don't want Jeremiah Love getting 20 carries a game. I agree with that assessment. You don't want Jeremiah Love getting 20 carries a game. It's a long college football season. What I do agree with, and what the expert failed to recognize, is that the combination of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price need 20 plus carries a game. Guess how many Jadarian Price got? The whole game. 6. Jadarian Price got 6 carries. It's not enough. And the reason why, Jeremiah Love only got 11. So they had 17 between the two. The reason why is because the other carries went, well, first of all, number 22, I'm sorry, I can't remember. He's just an unremarkable player. I'm sorry, hasn't scored any touchdowns. A great player. He's a great kid, I should say. He was going to play safety at the beginning of the season because we were thin at safety, and we moved him back to running back. But he got 1 less carry than Jadarian Price. Jadarian Price only got 1 more carry than him against our third string. We've also got Aeneas Williams in there getting meaningful snaps. There's not a need for this. There is no need for this. You want to be a run-heavy team, fine. But give it to the guys who can run. Well, Riley Leonard can run. I know he can, but you don't need him to. Give it to the guys who are better than him at running. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. 17 touches is not enough. In this game, especially if you want your identity to be a tough, strong running team behind a physical offensive line, then you need to be giving your top running backs 20 plus carries. And your quarterback, who is also a runner, his running needs to be supplemental and strategic. Right now, he's just running around for his freaking life. And we're doing quarterback designed runs, which are fine. And some of it's him also. I completely understand. And they'll call a pass play, and he'll do one read and then go. Or they'll call an RPO, and he just chooses to take himself instead of making the correct read. He's been off with reads, and he's been off in the downfield passing game. So naturally, he's been having more carries, and that's not necessarily always coaching. Either way, you have game film. You can see it on the practice field and in the game, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. He just continues. We just continue doing the same thing. Luckily, the way teams are going to play us now, Miami of Ohio dared them to throw the ball. I mean, if you're going to play, especially Miami of Ohio, if you're going to play with 8 men in the box and do one-on-one outside with Bo Collins or any of our wide receivers for that matter, you have to throw the ball down the field. You have to. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Miami of Ohio. If you've got single coverage high, that should be your first read, and you should really. I mean, it should be thrown more often than not. I don't want to give a percentage because I'm not that kind of an expert, but I do know that with a 6'3" wide receiver who's really fast and physical, who has one-on-one coverage on the outside, that should be your first read every single time. Whether it's an RPO or if there's a run call being made and you see that pre-snap, you need to audible out and that's your first read. Every time. Every time. Every single team does this, especially the passing ones. The best quarterbacks, the reason why they win Heisman trophies is because their coaches and them now as players put themselves in the position to make those throws. They practice it on the practice field, and then they execute it in the games. And Miami of Ohio got to the point where they were like, okay, if you guys are going to throw the ball downfield, I guess we're just going to play. We're going to put people in the box. We're going to take away your run, and I dare you to throw that pass. Now we did. We threw the pass, and we got a couple of pass interference plays, and we nailed the touchdown. So that forced them to back off. Now they have to not. Look at that. Look at football, huh? Throwing the ball down the field makes the team relax a little bit out of the box, and now you can run again. And we rushed for 270 yards. If I can see this, if I know this, those of you making millions of dollars in the Notre Dame football program should be able to see and know this too. I thought today, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start with some of the positive first, and then I'll go to the negative, because I usually start with the negative and then I'll go to the positive. I can't do it. I got to hold my team accountable. I have to. I absolutely have to. Because I want them to see it. I want to see them win a national title. And they're not going to do it this way. And somebody has to tell them when they're wrong. And our Notre Dame media isn't going to. They'll tell them that, oh man, NIU, that was a horrible loss. You should be totally ashamed. Yeah, they'll say stuff like that. They'll hold them accountable. Oh, why did this happen, coach? Asking these questions. But they won't really press the issue, which is our quarterback doesn't know the playbook and can't make downfield passes. Okay. I think he can. But you need to call it more. The running doesn't. I heard another prognosticator say, well, if you just benching Riley Leonard can't be the solution, because it's not like if you just bench him, then all of a sudden you can just start giving the rock down to the running backs, and there's going to be wide open lanes, because all the teams are going to do is put 8, 9 in the box. I'm so sick and tired of this argument. I heard this today. The reason why you can't put in a passing quarterback and rely on your running backs is because the safeties will crash every single time that you give them the football. What does that mean? That means downfield is open with one-on-ones. If safeties are crashing, if safeties are set up in the box or they are crashing the box. Downfield is open. So play action is now in play. This is not hard. This is why it's so frustrating. This is why people have to make podcasts in order for Notre Dame football to pay attention to these very simple, easy football concepts. And the only reason why benching Riley Leonard is so universally resisted is because it has that it looks bad. It's a bad look. And people are terrified of losing your locker room or losing your quarterback room. And I got to ask the question, what does it look like when you have a quarterback and you put him out on the field constantly who isn't executing? What does that do to player morale? There's no consequences. I can play however bad I want, and there's no consequences. I'm convinced now. Riley Leonard could throw 3 interceptions against Louisville. He'll play the whole game. I'm convinced. Because the coaches won't make the change, and everyone within the Notre Dame media is doing everything they can to make sure Freeman does not make that change. I'm not even advocating for Steve Angeli. I've said this before. I heard someone after the Purdue game, man, it'd be really nice if you could combine the skills of Steve Angeli and Riley Leonard. Who on our roster fits that bill? Kenny Minchie. He can move, he's got wheels, and he can throw. Oh, Danny, he's just a sophomore. You don't want to put a true sophomore in there. Well, we lost to Northern Illinois. Defend that. Why not? And we're well on our way to losing to Louisville. 30,000 foot view, which I've always said this podcast will be. 30,000 foot view. We're crapping our pants right now about Louisville. Even a good Louisville team. Louisville right now is 15th in the country. We're 16th. I think the line has started. I think we're 6.5 right now. That will go down as the week goes on. I bet everybody picks Louisville to win. I think Louisville smells blood in the water, and they should. And it's still I am not confident in this game, but I can't help but think I can't believe we're here again. I can't believe we're here. This is the state of Notre Dame football. That we're crapping our pants about a home game against Louisville. Think about that. Think about that. It is inconceivable to me that we lose to Louisville this weekend. Yet it's a very real possibility. Not just because of Louisville, the program, that we should be better, but they beat us last year, and the thought of them beating us last year, and then again this year at home, is inconceivable to me. Yet here we are. Yet here we are. And again, I go back to the weirdness of this team. I've just never seen anything like it. Let's move into the next segment of this podcast. I talked about the game. Sum it up. It was short. It was boring. Blah, blah, blah. We won by double digits. I'll talk about one positive real quick. We have the best secondary in the country. I should say we have the best starting secondary in the country, in my opinion. I know there's I know Ohio State fans are rolling their eyes. I know Georgia fans are probably rolling their eyes, maybe even Alabama fans too. But we could lose 5 games this year, but none of them will be lost because of our secondary. Not unless a bunch of people get hurt. We're really thin right now because, by the way, Jade Mickey transferred. He's putting on a red shirt the rest of the year, and he's going to transfer. On a already very, 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 very thin secondary. Talented, very talented and very good, but very thin. We have our starters are just Christian Gray. If the dude can learn how to catch passes, he should have 5 interceptions this year already. He's that good. Benjamin Morrison, we've already seen what he can do. Xavier Watts, I mean, he is just he's got that safety position just on lockdown. They're very good. They are elite, and that is perhaps the only aspect of this team that I would call elite. But the rest of the team is this team should be way better than it is, and it's just so frustrating and so perplexing as to why they aren't better than what they are. So that begs the question. This is the next segment of the podcast. What's wrong? What is the problem? What do you think it is? You the listener. If you've watched every single Notre Dame football game, you're trying to evaluate Notre Dame football. What do you think the problem is? I talked a little bit about this after the NIU loss, and I just again in the weeks prior, I don't hear a lot of college football analysts, prognosticators, journalists, Notre Dame journalists who cover the team. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. I think the problem is NIL. And when I say NIL, I don't mean just the pure paying of players. I'm not one of those people who thinks that players should get only a scholarship and a bag of chips and then asked to put their bodies and lives on the line every single Saturday. I'm not one of those people. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that out there that think these players, all they deserve is a scholarship. They deserve nothing less. I'm not one of those people. I think I'm an American, and I believe that if you are a consenting adult, that you should be able to use your talents and skills and maximize and optimize those as much as you possibly can. I don't care if you're in college or not. I think adults in this nation should be able to optimize and maximize their potential, no matter what, no matter where. Again, ethically, legally, consent, adults, all of the things, all the good things. Okay, nothing illegal, all right, within the law, should be able to maximize their potential. If I'm playing baseball and I'm in college and I'm really good and I'm the next Barry Bonds or I'm the next Babe Ruth, and Gatorade comes knocking on my door and says, hey, I want to pay you $20 million to be our next sponsor, I should be able to sign that. I should have the right and the consent to be able to take up that opportunity. This is the land of opportunity. I have no idea why. It was. There's this written rule that says amateurs aren't allowed to make money. I don't. I never understood that. I still don't. But there's a lot of people who are there. That's unfortunate. But that's the world we live in. There's going to be people that disagree with you, and they've got to be able to articulate their opinions and their arguments. And to me, there is none when it comes to that. Having that said, NIL was always supposed to be that. It's literally called name, image, and likeness. That's what NIL stands for, just in case if you live under a rock. And players can now get paid for their name, image, and likeness. Now, a brief overview on how NIL is supposed to work. This is how it is supposed to work. The example that I just gave is about as crude and as lay as an example I can give. It's also supposed to work. A school can set up kind of a NIL trust with boosters, where the boosters can then give towards the school, and those kids can take advantage of that money. And by sponsorships, there's all kinds of different things. The Notre Dame specific one of their big ones right now is not boosters, but one of their big trusts. I don't know a better. I can't articulate a better word than that. Is Under Armour. So Notre Dame owns a piece of Under Armour now. It wasn't we didn't just ink a deal. It's like Under Armour is now like a part of Notre Dame and vice versa. And Sam Hartman last year, he signed a deal with Under Armour as a athlete, just like LeBron James signing with Adidas. Not nearly that big, don't get me wrong. Not a deal like that, but a very similar type of deal. And kids can take advantage of that. As a matter of fact, every single player on these rosters, most anyway, I don't think I can attest to every single player, but most make some kind of money from these NIL type trusts. And there's laws and bylaws written into the NCAA rule book about NIL and how it can be used. This is how it can't be used. Notre Dame knocking on a kid's door saying, "Hi, we would like for you to come play for us. We're going to dip into our endowment and give you $10 million. That is illegal. That you cannot do. Now, is it enforced? Is it even being remotely regulated? No, it is absolutely not. This is the problem with NIL. It is the Wild West. And kids are being offered ridiculous amounts of money for their services, and it's coming from an illegal side of this rule. Now, I don't want to sound contradictory. I just said a person should be able to maximize their potential and their own name, image, and likeness. They should be able to do that. Consenting adults within the law should be able to do that. The reason why it's shady for schools to do this because they are 501c3s who are not-for-profit organizations, and there's antitrust laws and all kinds of things that really bring a school paying a player and making essentially him an employee and a student is this. It's a weird dynamic that has not been ironed out at all. So schools can't directly pay players. There's a long way of saying schools can't directly pay the players. They still do through these NIL type deals. But the schools themselves, because of how they classify themselves as organizations and how they are able to give out money and essentially pay staff, that has not been figured out. That is still illegal. You still can't do that. Eventually, do I think that's where it's going? I do. That is where it's headed. It's only a matter of time until schools start making these students hired employees. Having all that said, they de facto are paying them anyway. Now here's where this relates to Notre Dame and the rest of college football. Any kid going to a school solely for money is a hired gun. That's just how it is. Is it right? Is it ethical? Is it moral? That's not what I'm talking about. Like I said, I believe a person has the right to optimize their potential. But that doesn't mean getting a job solely because of the money is the right thing to do. I don't know that I would tell my friends this I don't know that I would tell a friend in an everyday way of life situation, yeah, go get the job that pays the most. I wouldn't tell a family member that either. Yeah, whatever job it is that just pays the most, yeah, go get that job. It could be the worst job you've ever had. I got plenty of friends who make money who hate their jobs. Or at least are just kind of like, yeah, it's a living. And they make really good money. When you sell out for the money, it obviously doesn't mean it doesn't mean you are optimizing yourself. It could be the wrong decision. It could be the right one. It also could be the wrong one. When you pay a player, specifically for their talents, they're a hired gun. That's what they are. They are hired to produce football only results. Now, this might not sound like that big of a deal, but the problem is the skis are ahead of the skier. These aren't professional organizations. Notre Dame isn't a professional organization. The schools aren't professional organizations. They have certain values. Every school has its own set of values. Its fan base, its administration, everyone involved with the programs has certain sets of values. And when you get a kid to come to your school, they not only play for you on the football field, they also represent your values. And when you get a player that is there solely for the money, they do not represent those values. I don't care if they deliver or not. Most fans, if they deliver, are like, yeah, screw it, who cares? I would probably be one of them because I won a national championship. But it can also cause major problems. I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing it at Notre Dame, and I think we're seeing that all around college football. Riley Leonard is a gun for hire. He just is. He was hired by Notre Dame to produce football results. Now, he's a good kid. I've said it before. He's a Christian. He's kind. He's polite. He's all the good things. And he's got all the athletic attributes. But he's still a gun for hire. Where did he go to college? Where was he committed to in high school to play college? He went to Duke to play for Mike Elko. Completely different coach, completely different university, completely different set of values. I have a hard time believing this is not a major problem within the locker room. I have a hard time believing that Sam Hartman before him last year, coming in, being a captain, all of a sudden, is not causing problems within the locker room. I have a hard time believing that one of the reasons why our preseason All-American defensive linemen who were up for being captains but didn't get selected, but Riley Leonard did, I refuse to believe that that's not a problem. That's not one of the reasons why they're not playing well. And they're not. They got pushed around again by Miami of Ohio. I'm seeing this weird team producing these weird results. Everything from elite to horrible, and not really having any answers. The only thing I can come up with is that this NIL thing is not all it's cracked up to be. At least the filling of major roster positions through the use of the transfer portal and NIL is not all it's cracked up to be. A couple other examples. You looked at FSU's schedule this year? What their record is? Yeah, they're awful. They're terrible. Their starting quarterback is on his third school in 3 years. Listen, do your own homework and look at all of the quarterbacks who have done 3 schools in 3 years, or three schools at all, and you look at how many of those guys have been successful. Very few of them. Very few of them. Obviously, Riley Leonard's not on his third school in 3 years. But he's a transfer nonetheless. What I believe the transfer portal and NIL has always supposed to have been is to shore up the depth problems that we've always had at Notre Dame. And to spend, and this is what I was told in terms of the actual paying of players. I was told on good authority by wonderful Notre Dame media coverage that how Notre Dame was going to use their NIL was on the back end. What I mean by the back end is instead of giving a freshman, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million to come in, a freshman recruit or a high school recruit to be a freshman, instead of doing that, we're going to do it at the back end. We're going to give it to the juniors and seniors and fifth years who are thinking about going to the NFL. We're going to try and keep those kids who have experience, who know how to play, they know the system, and we give the money to them and they stay. Didn't work with Blake Fisher. And again, Blake Fisher was ready to go to the NFL. He was drafted second round. Okay, look, he was drafted in the second round. But have you seen his first? Have you seen his contract? It's not much more, if at all, than some of these numbers being thrown around to these high school kids. Like Jaden Rashad a couple years ago. I mean, it was rumored that Florida was going to give him $15 million. That didn't happen, of course. But a lot of these kids are going to other schools because they're getting millions of dollars. That's why. We have our own quarterback problems right now in high school with Deuce Knight going to, potentially going to Auburn. And he's being offered millions of dollars to go to Auburn. Well, if we're not going to match whatever, if we're not going to give the kids in high school the money, then why couldn't we give that to Blake Fisher? Why couldn't we say, hey, Blake, we know that you're going to get, even if you're drafted in the second round, you'll probably get $3 or $4 or $5 million in your first contract, which is what his first contract was. It was like 5.1 or something like that with 1.5 guaranteed, something like that. A pretty substandard first contract for the NFL. Yes, it's the NFL. Yes, it's the highest level. But I thought we were supposed to use that money to keep those guys. Blake Fisher would look really good on this roster right now. So if we're not using NIL on the back end to keep guys like Blake Fisher, well, we kept Riley Leonard and the only reason why Riley Leonard was able to come back was because of COVID and that extra year of COVID. That's the only reason. And guys like him, there's a couple of guys on our team who were able to come back for that sixth year, essentially, because of COVID. That's the only reason. Otherwise, Riley Leonard is trying to get on an NFL roster right now. So it wasn't because of the NIL money. We were supposed to make that NIL money for guys like Blake Fisher. Not even for guys like Riley Leonard. Another part of the most frustrating thing about this team is we have recruited, talented wide receivers that played in the spring, that played in the fall, that we could have developed to play for this team right now who can pass and run. But instead we chose to throw all that money at Riley Leonard and not keep guys like Blake Fisher. So not only do we have a hired gun who needs to relearn the whole playbook and didn't have the spring to be able to do it, we have a guy who has a completely different set of values. And you're seeing this all over college football. All over college football. The kids out for the money, doing all the multiple transfers for NIL are not winning. The schools who are doing the recruiting and the developing are the ones doing the winning. Imagine that. Imagine that. College football, you have to recruit and then develop. If you need to use NIL to recruit, I don't see any reason why that you can't do that. At least you're getting that kid in to develop. If he wants to transfer, God be with him. But those odds are not well. Those aren't turning out to be super well right now. At key positions, I should say. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback. Especially quarterback. A lot of people picked Oregon to win the national championship and Dylan Gabriel to win the Heisman Trophy. They're not looking too good. I'm looking at a spanking right now from Ohio State. They might be your outlier with this whole NIL thing. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, unfortunately, they don't actually play football. They play high school teams. And they're not. They literally play 3 games this year. They got to play Oregon. They got to play Penn State. They got to play Michigan. That's it. That's their entire schedule. Everyone else is in the Big Ten stinks, and they should easily beat. So I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping at straws. I'm not sure. But I'm seeing an issue. Well, we all see issues with this Notre Dame football team, with the Notre Dame football program, with the Notre Dame football coaches. And the only thing I can come up with, the only thing I see here is the effects of NIL and the effects of the transfer portal. Thank God they voted to only do one transfer portal at the end of the season. They're getting rid of that spring transfer portal, which is just one of the worst things I've ever seen the NCAA allow. Like, it was just impossible for schools to really solidify rosters. I mean, we wasted a ton of reps on Tyler Buckner, not this last spring, but the spring before, only for him to just bail and go to Alabama. We could have been giving those reps to somebody else. Steve Angeli, maybe? But no, we gave them to Tyler Buckner, who then transferred after the spring because he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback. And then he went out and ruined his entire career. Ruined his career. I'd like to think that he's the kind of kid that would actually admit that. I'd like to think that if he had to do that over again, he would have done it differently. Maybe he would have transferred. I don't know. But I was saying before he transferred, oh my gosh, what are you doing? All he had to do was sit behind Sam Hartman, and maybe he's your starting quarterback this year. We didn't have to go get Riley Leonard. We could have had him and Steve Angeli and Kenny Minchey competing for a starting spot. I don't know. I think the kid just doesn't have the equipment up here. I'm not saying the smarts. He's obviously a very smart kid. I'm talking about the go-to, the it factor. He obviously doesn't have it, and he ruined his career. And NIL had a big reason. NIL was a big reason why that happened. So that's it. That's what I think is going on. I want to wrap this up. This has gone way too long. Every time I say this, I'm going to do this in like 40 minutes. Like an hour goes by. So I apologize for that. Again, just before I leave, like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell for when new videos arise. I'm going to be talking a lot more college football. I'm going to also start doing shows, hopefully quicker shows, where I'm going a little bit more in depth in these overall bigger conversations, things like NIL and recruiting, and then college football at large, because it's all relevant, it's all a whole lot of fun, and this is gonna be a fun season no matter what. I'm gonna make fun. I'm gonna make this fun as much as I possibly can. Whether Notre Dame loses every game the rest of the season or wins every single game the rest of the season, this is gonna be fun because this will be the first 12-team playoff. That's another thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about Notre Dame's independence going forward, what that's gonna look like, what I think they're gonna do, what they probably are gonna do. In terms of independence going forward, why they're independent. I think it's important to look at the history. A lot of people don't understand it and just, they're not in a conference, so let's hate them. And that's just the dumbest reason to hate Notre Dame. But nonetheless, people do. So that's going to be it for this show today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for joining me. Now I'm done.